Hi, I'm Dave Jardine Smith. I was for 25 years with the UK Coast Guard, not at the sharp end of search and rescue. I spent the first 9 years of my career with the Coast Guard in rescue coordination centres. And it's perhaps indicative of a problem here that we naturally think that there must be mental health support for those at the sharp end, the rescue unit crews. But the stresses and strains of search and rescue go further than that. And I'm here to say a few words about one of my experiences in an RCC. I also think that we need, as a community, to remember that SAR people are just ordinary people. They're great people, but they're ordinary people too. And there are lots of stresses and strains on them in their ordinary life, nothing to do with the job itself. What I'd like to talk about is a long time ago, November 1986. On the 6th of November that year, a large helicopter flying in from the Brent oil field crashed into the sea off Shetland in the North Sea. I was a watch officer in the Shetland Coast Guard station at that time. I had just come back to work, literally it was my first watch back at work, after a family bereavement. In fact, it was my elder son. He was born prematurely. He died when he was 2 days old. I had had excellent practical support from my managers and the organisation I worked for. In those days, not so much in the way of mental health support. 2 hours into my first watch back, the helicopter crashed. 47 people on board, 2 survivors, 45 people killed. It's the point I was going to make, or I'm going to make, is that it was manic, of course, for several days. The 2 people who survived were picked up in the first moments of the incident. It happened that a Coast Guard helicopter was very near the scene and came upon the accident site as wreckage was still coming to the surface. They picked 2 people up very rapidly. We then worked for 2-3 days flat out, day and night, to conduct searches, to try and find whatever else could be found, to bring bodies home for families. It was very, very, very busy. There weren't very many of us. We were working flat out. In the middle of all this, the phone rang. The phone was ringing constantly, of course. I picked up the phone and there was There was a woman on the line, the mother of one of the people on the aircraft. And it wasn't our job to give information about people actually involved in the case. That was a matter for the police. So I immediately said, "I'm very sorry, you're going to have to talk to the police." And she broke down and she said, "People keep passing me on. People keep asking me to talk to somebody else. I can't get any information." So I stopped and I said, "I will find out for you." It wasn't my job. I wasn't supposed to do that. I then made lots of phone calls. Spent quite a lot of time trying to get back to her because her phone line was constantly engaged, very unhappily. Her son was not one of the 2 survivors. I make that point because of my own situation at that time. I couldn't do anything to help my own son. I wanted to find hers. Didn't manage. It was very difficult. And as you can see, that is still here. Still here. More than 35 years ago now. At that time, all those years ago, getting this sort of support that people in that sort of situation should have, and certainly should have now, it wasn't really an option. We were all supposed to be, tough. It was part of the job. It wasn't offered. I didn't ask for it. I suppose the fault lies on both sides, if it is a fault. But the fact is, as I have just demonstrated without meaning to, it never goes away. So yes, everybody in search and rescue, everybody in that sort of stressful environment, including people who aren't actually hauling people out of the water and seeing the dead firsthand. They need support. They need the option to have that support. They need to be encouraged to take that support if it's needed, or if they feel it may be needed. Because who knows, maybe I would have been better able to cope with it after all this time than I have been.